I don't know what hurts more, the betrayal itself, or the feeling that I'd suspected it all along but chose to turn a blind eye. Every time we looked at each other, I sensed something was off. It was as if the invisible threads between us had snapped, leaving only a cold emptiness where trust used to be. It all started with small things, the kind of details you'd normally overlook. Her gaze grew colder, her voice lost its usual warmth. She disappeared more often in the evenings, claiming it was for work or to meet friends. Naturally, I didn't ask questions. I trusted her, or maybe I just wanted to trust her. After all, who are we without trust? One night, when she stayed out late, I decided to make dinner. I wanted to create a warm atmosphere, to remind her of how things used to be, our cozy evenings together, jokes, conversations about the future. But when she finally walked in, her expression was distant, her smile tense and forced. I tried to ignore it, but that moment stuck with me like a thorn buried deep under my skin. Over time, I started noticing more. She kept her phone close, almost as if she was afraid I'd see something. Her answers to my questions became brief, her hugs distant. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to confront her. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff. Knowing each step brought me closer to the fall, but unable to stop. After weeks of silent observation, I made a decision. One night, when she told me she was meeting friends, I decided to follow her. A mix of dread and hope battled inside me, praying that I was wrong, that it was all in my head. She walked quickly, confidently, never looking back. With each step, a growing sense of anxiety gnawed at me. I tried to stay out of sight, hiding in the shadows like a spy in my own life. After a few blocks, she stopped at a small cafe, one we'd never been to together. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe she really was meeting friends. But no, things were much worse than I could have imagined. Minutes later, a man approached her. Tall, confident, with a smile that gave away more than words could. He held out his hand, and she embraced him. The look in their eyes, their gestures, everything spoke louder than words. They looked as if they'd been together for years. I stood there, paralyzed, unable to move. My world shattered in that instant, but I couldn't tear my gaze away. When I returned home, I sat alone in the dark, staring into the empty space that echoed my own hollow feelings. All the memories, all the dreams we shared, they now seemed like illusions. I didn't know how to go on. The next day, I decided to get the answers I needed, but I couldn't find the strength to confront her directly. She had deceived me, broken my heart, but strangely, I realized I didn't hold any anger toward her. Only pain, confusion, and emptiness. And though our story was over, I knew I would never be the same. The following days were like a never-ending nightmare. Every single thing in the apartment reminded me of us, the old US that I'd fought so desperately to save. But now, knowing the truth, I saw our history differently. Every shared memory turned into pain, and every corner of our home became a reminder of what we'd lost. And as much as I hated to admit it, I knew deep down that we were over. Anna carried on as if nothing had changed, as if we were still a couple. Her smiles, her indifference to the distance growing between us, it struck me to my core. I knew I couldn't keep quiet any longer. Every moment of playing this happy couple charade was torture for me, and I decided it was time to take off the masks. One evening, when she returned home late yet again, I was waiting for her in the kitchen. She seemed a bit surprised to see me up, and her smile was noticeably forced. "We need to talk," I said with a firmness in my voice she'd never heard before. She sat across from me, still trying to maintain a calm expression. But I could see the nervous movements, the way she avoided meeting my eyes. We sat in silence for a few seconds, and then I asked directly, Are you in love with someone else? Her face darkened for a moment, but she quickly recovered, looking me straight in the eye. What do you want me to say? She asked quietly, and her words cut me like a knife. I knew we'd already crossed the point of no return. Anger surged through me, but I held it back, realizing that nothing she could say would change what had happened. Just tell me the truth, I whispered. Anna looked away, sighed, and seemed to hesitate for a moment. Yes, it's true, but you and I, we were happy too. I don't want to change anything. It just happened. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had wanted her to offer excuses, explanations, to try and hold on to what we had. But there was none of that. She simply sat there, looking at me, and in her eyes, I saw neither regret nor remorse. There was nothing left for me to do but stand up and walk away. I couldn't stay in that room, in that apartment, with her any longer. My world was gone, and the only thing I could do was leave. The next morning, I packed my things without a word to her. All our dreams, plans, and illusions were left behind in that apartment, which had become nothing more than an empty shell. My story with Anna was over, and I decided I would never look back. Months went by, and though the pain lingered, I began to feel like I could breathe again. I learned to value myself, to trust myself, and to stop expecting from others what they couldn't give. Perhaps this story became a lesson that changed me forever.